said I'd never do this. I have never necked a neck oil. I was adamant I wouldn't do it, and yet here it sits before me. I've never necked a neck oil, so why am I necking it now? Yes, welcome back to the channel with me, Disco, coming at you with another beer video from in front of the cans and bottles here on the bar. I'm still nostalgically calling the Disco Arms, and yes, indeed, I have never necked a neck oil. This might come as a bit of a surprise to some people. It's probably a fairly recognisable can, certainly a fairly recognisable name within craft beer, and yet I've barely even drunk Beavertown. I've very barely even bought Beavertown. I can only think of two instances. One of them was a free sample, and the other one, well, I did it for a video here, and even that I only got accidentally because it was part of a collaboration series with Toast. It was a dark beer and it was quite nice, but for their mainstream stuff, neck oil and many of the others which I always forget about, I just don't do. I've never been into Beavertown particularly, even though, say, I openly admit it's one of the foremost breweries in the craft beer scene in the UK in the last 10, 15 years. I've got a long explanation as to why, but here it is. So I think I should just get on with it and get it over with. I know you're not meant to go in with any particular preconceived ideas, but I think I know what I'm getting into here. And as I say, I'll explain why I never have done so far. Let's just get this into grass and get the surprise, as it were, over with, shall we? Yeah, so this little 330ml can, 4.3% session IPA. I wasn't even aware that it was that low or anything. You don't see me doing too many session IPAs these days because they all end up being much to muchness for me. But there it goes into the glass. A fair old decent pour with some reasonable head development, quite good fluffy kind of head, which I expect to dissipate again, going in with a bit of conceived ideas. But yeah, kind of hazy, kind of light. It's been in my fridge for a couple of weeks. As I'll go on to explain, I don't know the condition or the date of this, but let's just dive in and see what we get, shall we? And then I'll explain as to why. Okay. Well, not too bad on the aroma. I'm expecting some kind of grapefruit mush, and as you know, I don't like grapefruit. But no, there's more kind of orange going on there for me. Fairly indistinct, but kind of orangey tangerine note. So, I don't know. I could be wrong about this. I've just always assumed that I've got no time for this and wouldn't really like it if I tried it, and certainly wouldn't be buying it, especially not on a regular basis. Not even for once, but damn, that's cheers and enjoy the beers. Let's see what we get. Okay. Well, it hasn't made me wince. It hasn't made me screw my face up and suggest it's like being smacked around the face with a grapefruit beanbag. I'll go back in for another go. It is quite light, but certainly not weak and watery. There's a bit of a hazy body to it. Like I say, for me, that kind of, it's a kind of not quite orange squash, but certainly often like it's like orange, like Robinson's orange barley water, where it's got a kind of fruit note, but also kind of a light spring watery note. But there's none of that real spring water note here. There was always a danger that it was actually going to be all right. And whether that means I put a video up or not is another matter. But yeah. Okay, so I'm an idiot, right? It's everything the opposite of what I've always thought about Beavertown. Back in the day, 10 years or so ago, I'm in pubs drinking pints of real ale, fairly traditional stuff, and I start noticing all these kind of American style IPAs. basically overhopped, overpriced, and over here, and grapefruit mouthwash. And I just never really got into that. It was always epitomised to me by this kind of stylized kind of art kind of notes. Um, and Beavertown being kind of at the forefront of that with these kind of that kind of can art just kind of always put me off that kind of style of beer, that hoppiness going on. I mean, it's sort of when when you got things like this, the original disco forklift truck from Drygate, very reminiscent of that. And I thought that was a bit over hoppy when I first tried it. But then they changed the cans. Can't see it behind there, but yeah. So I was, and that's from about 2013. So I was never that a big fan of that kind of craft beer when it came over. So Beavertown, I've always shied away from, much like that overhyped and now slightly tarnished brand from Scotland in Mongrel. But yeah, so I've never really bothered with Beavertown, despite everybody saying, "Oh, they're brilliant," and it's a great story. I mean, I should have liked the story, like with the guy who started it and owned it, Logan Plant. Despite sounding like an Irish construction company that hires out big machinery, only because I used to work in that industry. Yeah, Logan Plant, son of guitarist Robert Plant, did well. A lot of people obviously, really think well of them and or thought well of them at that time, and bought their lot of their beers. There was a lot of hype around them. I think Neck Oil is certainly one of their original or main beers. I don't know whether, because I haven't paid any attention to it, I don't know whether it was formerly a stronger IPA rather than a session beer. Um, but yeah, I've just never bothered, never paid much attention to it. In fact, actively uh, rallied against it long before it was probably cool to do so. Um, and then a few years back, I'm still aware of their presence in the craft beer scene and noticed that they sold out 50% to Heineken. And it's unlikely you'll see many Heineken products on this channel. I'm generally against kind of big beer, mass produced, bottom line, and overhyped, overhopped, and that kind of beer that just everybody else likes, really. I prefer the underdog, prefer the little guy. Uh, Once a beer goes that kind of mass market availability, not just in supermarkets, there's plenty of decent beers in supermarkets from independents now, although there's a whole different story and discussion about that. But yeah, Beavertown for me is just sort of like once you sell out to Heineken, and then eventually, what was it the other year, they sold out entirely to Heineken. I just imagine that, you know, quality is going to drop a little bit. It's mass produced, and they claim to care about the customer, but just yeah, quality drops, and yeah, it was never on my radar first, so it doesn't say it drops off my radar, but just never been that bothered. And I don't want to go around seeing promoting Heineken products. They do that enough themselves, and they've got multi-million dollars behind or pounds behind them to do so. So I'm not putting their stuff out. Um, However, I'm often seen around both my videos, lives, and anybody else's slagging off these types of beers. And well, there's a whole list of beers that I dislike. This was never on there because I never really tried them enough to dislike them. I just disliked the concept. I just avoided them basically. I wasn't even going around and slagging them off particularly. There's just 1,000 and more other breweries to try, especially like I say the little guys that nobody ever really talks about. And I prefer doing that because I find more interest in that. You find more little gems and you get to say, Lee, look at this, and that a beer that nobody ever heard of. Maybe somebody else tries it and go, hey, yeah, you're right, that's really good. Whereas Beavertown, probably everybody, or I assume everybody's heard of them and maybe tried their stuff. So there's not a lot to talk about, especially on a session IPA that's just going to be mildly hoppy or not, or just mildly light. As for this one, though, I mean, I'll put my hands up and go, yeah, okay, I can see. I think probably why it's quite well liked. It is fairly inoffensive. There's not massive grapefruit notes, although a lot of people like that. So I'm surprised that that's not the case. Don't know what the hops are, and I'm guessing that hop content and flavour has decreased steadily over the years. Just a guess. I don't know. Um, I don't know the provenance of this particular can. Let me just have a check. You see the info on the bottom, you know what I'm looking for. Can 20th of November 2023. Best before 20th of August 2024. All right, seriously. For a year nominally out of date beer, it's actually like perfectly drinkable. There's probably maybe a little bit of hop fade perhaps, but I'm not particularly getting faded grapefruit. Like I say, it's gone more tangerine for me. Yeah, the reason I'm doing it now is because I've still never bought a Beavertown. Maybe I should. Maybe I should buy a current one and do a comparison. Might be interesting, but I'm still not bothered about talking about being a Beavertown or Heineken products. But yeah, I was simply given this and 9 other cans of it in a 10 pack. By friends who really should know better, but to be fair, they'd say they won't be drinking it either. And it's been sitting in their garage, I think, for a while. So they gave it to me, and I might be able to, if not drink it, get rid of it by other means. And I can't really be giving away a year out of date beer. Will I be drinking it? Probably not, but it's not actually that bad. It's one I can probably drink without having to think about. It's certainly one, if I need a nice cold, refreshing shandy, as wouldn't be so bad. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I know I started off by saying I've never necked a neck oil. It's one I probably could properly neck if I needed a kind of chug to neck. Because as I say, it's so fairly inoffensive. It's almost quite smooth. There's no hop spike to it. Again, probably because of hop fade. So I don't know. I don't want to have to go out and buy a current can of neck oil. Do I do a comparison? Yeah, let me know in the comments if you want to see that. But yeah, this is the first. Well, yeah, this is the first time I've drunk a Beavertown, proper Beavertown beer. Like I said, there was that collab with Toast, and there was a small sample at a beer festival somewhere once. I think it was a coffee stout, coffee porter, which I think is now in supermarkets. But yeah, well, there we go. Dan, I look an idiot for not really knowing what I'm talking about by avoiding Beavertown. All these years, I don't think it would have improved my drinking experience any. But yeah, so a mainstream beer that I've been avoiding all these years ain't too bad, I suppose. It's just not amazing, but it's not quite what I thought it would be. So, and although that head has dissipated and there's no real lacing on it, it is proper cold, so it's kind of stuck all the way down the glass a little bit. And yeah, it's just all right. Who knew? I don't think it's something I'll be doing on a regular basis, but I don't know till I see what it's currently like. Well, there you go. I've been Disco, just Disco beer review. Let me know in the comments what an idiot I am for not drinking Beavertown all these years. So I'm not going to go on to drink any more Beavertown because of the Heineken connection. I'm not bothered. So, yeah, slag me off in the comments or whatever. Click like, and if you haven't already, click subscribe, and hang around until the next video and see what other stupidness I produce. And until then, I still can't believe I've done that. Cheers and enjoy the beers.